This is the Hohem iSteady V3. Let me tell you more about it. So if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm obsessed with gimbals. I've owned over 15 and I constantly use them on a ton of my shoots. Now, to be honest, I don't really use smartphone gimbals a lot since I use larger cameras for my filmmaking and video needs, but if I'm traveling a lot, something like this is a great little tool to use, especially if you want to capture smooth and cinematic video. This thing is foldable, which is what makes it so small. And so with just a simple bend and a twist, boom, it's ready to go. It even has a built-in tripod. These little tripod legs stick out of the gimbal itself and you can just plop it anywhere you want. Now throughout this video, you're probably gonna see a lot of my hands in the shots. I apologize if they look a little banged up. It's because I just got a new golden retriever puppy, so yeah, he's been biting me. But anyway, back to the video. Now there are two other features that I found extremely unique with the Hohem iSteady V3. One, it's detachable remote controller. I have not seen this on a gimbal before. It's detachable and it works very well. It's not just some simple gimmick. If you film a lot of videos on your own, this thing is an absolute must and it saves you a ton of time. You can just remove it. It has a built-in battery. You can also charge it via USB-C. It gives you controls such as joystick control. You can switch the modes of the gimbal, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And you can also control the zoom in and zoom out if you're using the Hohem app. There are also LED lights on the remote controller telling you the exact mode and battery life of the gimbal. With the remote controller removed, you can actually see some other lights built into the gimbal itself, so you always know the status of the gimbal while you're filming. Along with the detachable remote controller, we have a new motion sensor that's powered by AI. It's also a fill light. So if you take a closer look at this little module, you'll notice that it has a little camera and an LED fill light. This camera enables much better AI tracking along with hand gesture controls. So before we get more into that, let me show you how to set this gimbal up. As I mentioned earlier before, the tripod legs just simply fold out from the bottom. Then you prop up the gimbal body simply by folding it up, and then just open up the spring-loaded clamp and put in your phone. You can try your best to balance it so that way it doesn't flop over. That way it takes up less battery life and it stresses your motors out less. If you want to learn a lot about gimbals and how they work, make sure you check out some of my gimbal tutorials right here. Now, once the phone has been clamped on, you're going to open up the Hohem Joy app. You can download this via the Google Play or App Store. Then you're going to hold down the power button on the right side of the gimbal until you hear a little chime. The gimbal will spring to life and start off shooting in vertical mode. In order to switch to landscape mode, we're going to press the mode button twice and it will switch into landscape. So the remote controller is where you're going to see all of the main buttons and functions of the gimbal. We have the joystick, as I mentioned earlier, which can reposition the angle of your phone. You have the mode button, which will switch between the different shooting modes on your gimbal, such as pan follow, full follow, and lock mode.
Starting with lock mode. This mode will lock both the pan and tilt axis from moving. This is great when you want to lock onto a subject. This is by far the smoothest gimbal mode. This is especially useful when locking onto a subject. Pan follow mode will enable the pan axis while disabling both the tilt and the roll axis. Follow mode will enable both the tilt and the pan. This mode is more dynamic, yet it does need more technique from the user. And all follow will enable the pan, tilt, and the roll axis. This is great for those moving Dutch angle shots.
And we have the digital zoom controls on the remote, and this will only work if you're using the Hohem Joy app.
Use the up and down arrows on the remote controller to control the zoom. You can also change the speed of the zoom within the settings of the Hohem Joy app. This is great when recreating the vertigo effect. When having a closer look at the Hohem Joy app, you'll notice that it looks very similar to your phone's default camera app. When in video mode, you can adjust things like the frame rate, you can add in filters, you can change exposure, and within the settings, you can change things like the zoom speed, gimbal calibration, and more.
On the left side, we have the fill light control button. So if we press it and hold it, you'll notice that the light turns on, and you can control the dim by adjusting the dial. By clicking the dial twice, we will access by color mode, so we can go from cooler to warmer light. And on the back of the gimbal, we have a recenter trigger and a selfie mode trigger. If you click the trigger twice, it will recenter the gimbal. If you click it 3 times, it will go into selfie mode where the phone will face you. And to charge the gimbal, we have a USB-C port right under the power button. Now this little AI module is pretty awesome because not only does it do a great job with tracking and using hand gestures, but you can also swap it and flip it. So I can remove it, flip it around, and have it point the other direction. So what do hand gestures allow you to do? The OK sign will start the gimbal tracking you. The hang loose sign will trigger recording, and it will stop recording. The stop sign will make the gimbal stop tracking you, and this sign right here will allow you to reframe or reposition where you're standing, so that way you can track slightly off center.
Whenever the AI module sees your hand gesture and applies a command, you will see the LED light go from orange to green, or the green light will start blinking. It is very reactive and sensitive to your hand gestures.
Overall performance of this gimbal is great, especially when you're using your wide-angle camera on your phone. You get this beautiful landscape, everything looks like it's moving smoothly, and I love how smooth this gimbal is, especially when you go into telephoto mode and you can see that jitters and little bumps in the footage are very minimal. Now, are you ready for the last and one of the best features of this gimbal? Well, it's an integrated selfie stick. So Hohem went all the way with this one, and they tried to include as many features as possible to make this an everyday video taking tool. So to use the selfie stick, you just have to take your hand and pull up on the pan motor. Try not to use too much force, and you can also position and angle the top. This gives you a little bit more height, so that way you can film over people or just get a higher perspective. Overall, I think this is the best smartphone gimbal on the market. I'm not just saying that, I genuinely enjoyed my time with the iSteady V3, and it even has superb build quality. So if you're interested in the Hohem iSteady V3, make sure you check out the link down below. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section, and I'll see you in another video. Peace.